The M1 chip is one of the greatest things that came out of 2020, and while if you didn't know, not a lot of good things came out of 2020. So after I've been using an M1 MacBook Pro now for a month, how exactly is it performing for me even though it's over a year old? The M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBooks were out when I got the M1 MacBook Pro, so why did I even get it, not well an M1 Max or M1 Pro? Well, first, I'm not made of money. Second, I don't need it. And 3, I was having issues with my 2019 MacBook Pro for so long that Apple caved in and they gave me a free upgrade after 5 times of sending it in for, well, repairs. Well, it got quote unquote repaired, but I got it back and the keyboard was still broken. The logic board was fried. There was just a lot of issues, and Apple gave me a free upgrade basically, which was very kind of them actually, after spending all that money and having around 2 years of issues with a computer. My old 2019 MacBook Pro was one of the MacBooks that had a butterfly keyboard, which had common issues of keys being sticky, keys repeating, and much more. So when I got my new MacBook, I was so excited to have a normal keyboard that works and won't break down on me. So far, after I've been using this keyboard for almost a month, it feels great to use. Unlike the butterfly keyboard, on this keyboard I can reach a comfy typing speed over a long session compared to quick bursts I got good at on a butterfly keyboard. Travel on a keyboard that's not on any level of mechanical keyboard, but compared to most other laptop keyboards, this keyboard feels great to use. One of the things I hated most about my old MacBook Pro was the touch bar, well sadly it's still a thing on the 13-inch MacBook Pros. I really hope Apple removes it on the 13-inch MacBook Pros, as on the 14 and 16 inches, it's no longer there and it's been replaced by an actual proper function row now, and I'm sure it drives up the costs on the 13-inch. A few people have stated that their touch bar doesn't have any issues for them. Cool, you're lucky, but for most people, me and almost everyone else on the internet, the touch bar is just a laggy piece of unreliable junk half the time. Oh, and yes, I will be complaining about the touch bar until it is gone from every MacBook in existence. As I'm sure you know by this point, the battery life on the M1 MacBook is crazy good. I have not had to charge the MacBook a lot since I got it. I'm using the MacBook 1 to 3 hours on most days for writing a Notion, schoolwork, while listening to music and more. Even while video editing on it for a few hours, it lasts the whole time and loses around 10% over 3 hours of video editing. Coming from any other laptop I've ever used, that battery life is insane. I've had one small issue with the battery though. I use the MacBook to stream off, and well, when I'm streaming off, I'll obviously keep it plugged and charging. But sometimes I'll leave it plugged in overnight in my whole like streaming setup area. Now what happens is I come back the next morning and let's say I want to use my MacBook downstairs, I go to unplug and everything. What happens is, since the computer's dead, even though before I unplugged it, it was at 100%, I need to plug it in and it's like, oh yeah, you're 0% again. It just keeps on happening. It's very bizarre. It actually happened just a bit before I was recording this. I wanted to go on my MacBook quickly to check a few things on my B-roll, and my MacBook was just like, before I unplugged it, oh yeah, 100%, I unplugged it, and it was like, charge your battery, you've got 10% left. It's just very bizarre how it keeps on happening. It's like a visual glitch, I don't know, but even when it's plugged in, it's draining battery, which is very bizarre, and it's not even doing anything. As per usual, this MacBook has some of the best build quality on any laptop. The body is a full aluminum chassis. The keyboard has no flex on what I can see, and speaking of flex, the screen also has very little flex. Ports. One of the things MacBooks never seem to get right, even the new $2,000 and up MacBooks, missing out basic ports such as USB-A. Or you could time travel to 2015 to get good ports. That gives me an idea. 88 miles per hour.
Marty! You've got to come back with me!
Where?
Back to the future!
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Well yes, the new MacBooks do have HDMI, USB-C, SD card, and headphone jack. Apple doesn't have the courage to remove that from the MacBook yet. They are lacking USB-A. Then when it comes to the base 13-inch MacBook Pro Air, there's only 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack. Yet again, I'm still glad Apple haven't removed the headphone jack from the Mac yet. I'd say give them a few more years. They remove it from everything. They remove everything. But speaking of ports, I've got a new laptop coming in soon with lots of ports and more. Stay tuned for January 2nd, 2020. The speakers on the MacBook sound amazing, and they're some of the best laptop speakers I've ever heard now. Obviously, I'm sure the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros probably sound a bit better, but these speakers, for the size, cost, and everything, they sound really good. The display on the MacBook is top notch, just like every other display Apple makes. You see what I did there? The display goes up to 485 nits, which is not that bright in bright sunlight, but it works in normal sunlight, and while inside it works fine. After getting used to 120Hz or even more on almost all displays I use other than my MacBook, if my MacBook only be 60Hz, it feels very weird sometimes. It feels like it's lagging when I'm moving stuff around. You don't need to look far on the internet to know that me and almost everyone else on the internet is a huge fan of the M1 chip. When I used my old MacBook, after 2 minutes of use, nothing even opened, the computer would get hot, almost hot enough to burn you sometimes. After 2 years of having this, it started to become a pain to use my computer, and I wouldn't even want to use my computer if I wasn't attached to my desk with a whole keyboard, as touching the keyboard itself would just be too damn hot. Every time I pick up the M1 MacBook, I always think for a minute, wait, my computer's gonna get really hot, and I remember, unlike the MacBook Pro of yesteryear, these are actually confident devices for 2021, almost 2022 now, which actually won't overheat when you're actually using your computer. Crazy, I know. I've only really ever noticed a computer get properly hot while doing live streaming, and I'm very rarely actually touch the computer itself while doing live streaming. Speaking of heat, on my old MacBook, all you could ever hear was the fan noise, the and after a while, the noise just becomes a real pain. Well, thanks to the M1 being so efficient, there is no heat generated, which also means the fans never turn on. I've been using the M1 Mac Mini for almost a year now, and not once have I noticed the fan turns on. And no, it's not because the computer isn't working. If you put your hands behind it when the computer's doing something kind of intense sometimes, you can feel the cold air coming out of it. But long story short, never have I actually heard the fan noise, which I heard on my MacBook Pro. And same thing with the new MacBook Pro, there's never a single bit of fan noise. The M1 chip is a speedy chip, but I'm sure you already knew that. Look, I very rarely find myself running into bottlenecks of the M1 chip. It's always fast enough for what I need it to do. Those videos you've seen of people opening up everything in their dock is real. The M1 chips can do that. It is crazy fast. The M1 chip is just crazy when it comes to speed, heat, and fan noise. As much as I love my M1 MacBook, there are a few issues sometimes though. So look, the major issue which I'm going to talk to you about is the issue I went on about before, quickly. When you leave it plugged in sometimes and you unplug it and it's got a blank screen. Look, I don't know what's causing this issue, but I think it's a visual glitch. But also, I don't understand how it's draining battery overnight. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And most people I've seen online, they don't have any sort of issue like that. So I don't understand what's going on. It's a bit annoying. I just kind of want to understand what's going on. And that's basically it. And look, it's not a deal breaker. If I were to buy this computer again with my actual money and not the previous one, get an upgrade, yada yada yada, I'd buy it. It's a great computer and I 100% recommend it if you're in the market for something like this. So that is it. That's the M1 MacBook Pro. Look, there are a few things wrong with this computer in my opinion, but the positives outweigh the negative here. And if you're in the market for this kind of computer, as I said before, this is the computer for you. I would not recommend this computer to you. The Air or the Pro, 13-inch Pro, are probably two of the best computers you can buy right now with your money. I'd only get the Pro if you just want the fan, as the Air is an amazing computer. I don't have it, but what I've heard, it's basically like that. They're both amazing computers, and if you're in the market for like a good computer which is speedy and will last you a while, long battery life, all of that, the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air are some of the best computers you can get, so I'd 100% recommend them. If you enjoyed this video, it'd really help if you leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.